So nice. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, SBJ. Can you also just thank also Sandra Yoffie, who I didn't know her husband, but I know he must have been a great man if he shared even a fraction of the commitment to freedom of speech and open government that his wife does. There are so many people here I want to thank. I have to say that I'm not going to do it because all I'll do is piss off people I omit completely by mistake, and it would take a very, very long time. Oops. But let me I will just do one or two. I'd like to thank my wife, Maury Cater, who is here with us tonight. I would like to thank the other Madison in my life. There's another Madison in my life, my daughter, and here she is. Madison. Well, not sure these really do very much, but they kind of make me look more serious. I'm mindful of the time, but everybody else has gone pretty quickly, so sit back. This will take about 45, 50 minutes.
10 minutes.
Exactly. I've just been very lucky. For the last 12 years, I've had this wonderful job, kind of a dream job if you're a lawyer interested in First Amendment matters, if you've been a journalist or care about journalism, care about good writing, care about news gathering, and if you care about the rule of law, and in particular the First Amendment and all that it stands for, there really can't be a job with a job description that is more interesting and fun than the one I've had. And by far the best part of it for me was all the times that I would get phone calls or emails. Phone calls are better though. From many of the people in this room and journalists, all over the state, who I tried at least to help. You came with all kinds of fascinating questions, the kind of questions many lawyers never get. To be able to assist you in sort of strategizing about the story that you were writing, in how to get access to information by legal means or other means, and what the strengths or weaknesses might be under the law. Those are the kinds of questions that I just love to entertain, and I'm going to miss them a lot. So I wanted to let you know that although I've retired as the executive director from FAC, I will still take all of those calls. If you want to call me anytime, and I will answer the easy ones. And then the ones that require research and very serious thought, I'm going to refer to my successor, David Snyder, the terrific new executive director of the First Amendment Coalition, who is here tonight. I'd like him to just stand up for a second. Well, these are not ordinary times when it comes to the First Amendment. In 12 years that I've been very actively engaged in this business as the executive director of FAC, I've never seen anything like what the ascension to the highest office in the land of Donald Trump has meant for freedom of speech and freedom of the press. These are dangerous times. The most dangerous times for the First Amendment, in my memory, the only thing to compare to it perhaps would be the second Nixon term, and the unraveling of his administration because of Watergate. The unraveling saved the First Amendment then. It is not at all clear how things are going to play out this time around. And when I say that about Donald Trump, I'm really not being partisan, or I'm trying not to be partisan. I certainly didn't vote for him. But the problems that I have with him really don't have much to do with the fact that he is a Republican. They have to do with the policies that he has announced and the actions that he has taken and his recklessness with respect to individual liberties and the sanctity of free speech and the press. These are things that I never thought I would see in America. He has declared a fatwa against the news media. And he is a practitioner of what people have appropriately called the big lie. When the president lies repeatedly and compulsively, the people no longer know what to believe and who to believe. And if the people can't tell what is true and what is false, what happens is that democracy breaks down. Government can't be held accountable when the people don't know what has happened and what hasn't happened, what is true and what is false. The guarantee of free speech and freedom of the press, as I think we've all learned over the years, is a very, very fragile thing. We often take it for granted. We revel in major Supreme Court victories. And we think that the freedoms secured or guaranteed by the First Amendment are secure because of our history, because of the case law that comes from the Supreme Court. But the truth is that the First Amendment is really is just words on a page. Just words on a page, a mere 14 words, including contractions, of the most sacred text that we have. We all know it by heart, but here it is again. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. I think it's important enough that we all say it together, right? This is like a kumbaya moment. So here it is again. Say it with me. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. And let's do it one more time like you mean it. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Amen. Amen. There is more, it's true. But at the First Amendment Coalition, that's the only part we really cared about. And so I didn't learn the other stuff. But there is also the right of assembly, and there is the right of petition. And those do matter greatly. But for us in this room tonight, these really are the words of the sacred text. So these words, they're not self-enforcing, they're not self-effectuating. They don't have their own police force. They don't have an army. The only thing that keeps them going, well, there are two things. There are two things that keep those special freedoms intact for all of this country. One is the judiciary, the judges. Without judges, these words would mean nothing at all. Without an independent judiciary, able to stand up to political pressure and to articulate the law as they take it from the founding fathers, as they take it from statutes, and to do that regardless of the pressures and the intimidations and the demands of those in power at any given moment, political power. So the judiciary is one piece. The other key piece is you. An independent news media dedicated to uncovering the truth without fear or favor, regardless of who is advantaged by what you report on or disadvantaged, and reporting that tells the people, tells the voters, the truth about what their government is doing in their name, and tells them not only the answers to the questions that they have, not only gives them the information that they know that they want, but great journalism also is great because it tells readers, tells voters what they need to know, even though they didn't know that they need to know it. Yes, these are dangerous times, but for the best of journalists, for serious journalists, for all the people in this room, these are also the best of times, right? I mean, Trump's election did two things. We all lost sleep for days and days, night after night. But it also, I think, energized the Fourth Estate like nothing that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Nothing energizes journalists like hearing the President of the United States declare, "You are the enemy. You are the enemy, not only of him, you are the enemy of the people. This is your moment." I think all of us here will, for the rest of our lives, remember when they heard on television or on the internet Trump utter those words. The media are the enemy of the people. Trump is part right. You are the enemy. You are an enemy, but not of the people. You are the enemy of lies. You are the enemy of propaganda. You are the enemy of all that is fake news. You are not the enemy of this president. Even a compulsive liar may speak the truth once in a while. Donald Trump, like a broken clock. Broken clock, can tell the time accurately once or twice a day. And even Trump, in his fulminations on Twitter at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes he may say something that is true, even though he has no more reason to think it's true than the false things that he says. But a good example, something we're all in the midst of right now, for example, he charged that the Obama administration eavesdropped on Trump Tower during the presidential campaign.
Wiretap.
He said wiretap. And of course, Obama did no such thing. But that doesn't mean something didn't happen. And the press, in writing about this, should not simply assume that nothing at all happened just because that fits the pleasing narrative of forcing Trump to have to apologize to the former president. Something may have happened, and the press, and only the press, really can be trusted to get to the bottom of that. So I would just also remind everybody here that you've been called the enemy of the people, which of course you're not. But that doesn't mean you're the enemy of this administration. You're the enemy of this administration when it lies. Because your ultimate audience, your ultimate clients, if you will, are the people, not any political faction, not any political party. So, these are dangerous times. And I think, frankly, that the worst is yet to come. We've only just seen the beginning. The intelligence community, the defense community, and many other agencies in Washington have been leaking profusely to many of the finest reporters in the land. Don't think that this administration is going to sit back and let all that pass and not try to do something to deter further leaks. There are going to be criminal investigations. They will not only seek to prosecute people inside the government who have leaked to the press. They are also going to do that by demanding that the media identify confidential sources. They will use subpoenas to do that. They will not be subject to our shield law here in California or in other states, because this is the federal government after all. People will go to jail. Worse than that, I fear and strongly suspect that the Trump Justice Department will cross a red line that has been observed by generations of Justice Department attorneys general, and that is prosecute or attempt to prosecute journalists for publishing stories based on classified information that is part of communications intelligence. The federal government has come close to doing that in the past, but has always stepped back. This does not strike me as an administration that would ever step back. And when that happens, just so you know in advance, the law is not so overwhelmingly in favor of journalists. My bet is the journalists win ultimately in the highest court in the land, but it's by no means is that a certainty. And so the times that we face really, really are dangerous, and we will see something, unfortunately, that we will be facing threats that we have not had to face before in the United States. So looking ahead, I can't tell you, exactly how things are going to play out. I do have my suspicions and my fears, but I think the best I can do is reach out to the language of America's most recent poet laureate, Bob Dylan, who told us, "You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows." And indeed, I think we all know which way the wind is going to blow. And it's going to blow harder than anything we have ever experienced. It is not just going to be a a breeze. It's not just going to be a storm like the storms that we've been having here in recent months. This is going to be a typhoon wind. And it is going to push you, and it is going to bend you, and it is going to try to break you. And when that happens, when the administration decides to indict and prosecute a reporter, for example, from the Washington Post or Politico or the New York Times or AP or any of the other publications that have been covering the president using leaked information that is classified information. When that happens, the press is going to have to suspend its otherwise very healthy instinct to compete with each other fiercely over every story. When that happens, the only way that your protections will survive is if the journalists and everybody else who supports journalists, everybody in this room and people of like mind across the country, stand up and stand together against Donald Trump. You need to stand up and stand together. So when that wind blows, the harshest wind anyone here has ever experienced when it comes to protecting First Amendment rights, you have to stand together. What are you going to do?
Stand together.
Well, you can't stand together when you're sitting down. What are you going to do?
Stand up.
Stand up first. And then I ask you again, when that wind blows from Trump Tower, what are you going to do?
Stand together.
One more time, louder.